All right, what is going on, everyone? It's another week. You know it. Let's talk about this way. Guys, I am super excited about this week's episode. There's a couple milestones happening here. One, we have a sponsor this episode, a sponsor, and one of my best friends is doing it with his company coming up. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be Openers, OPNRS. I'm going to jump in that in just a second here, but obviously I got to give a shout out to one of the best bands that does the intro and outro music for this episode and for every episode. The Bandana. You know those young guys out there in Simi Valley, California. You guys are doing great things. Give them a listen. They're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Bandcamp. You list it, they're on it. I'm starting to lose track of how many there are these days, okay? And so, real quick with the sponsorship with Openers, they are a digital card game. Be on the lookout for them. It is out on the Apple Store and the Android Store. We're going to do a fun little preview of it later in this episode, so stay tuned for that. And here we go. Who I'm bringing on today. She is getting big in the influencing game. She has very strong beliefs, ones that she stands by very strongly on them. Also, she's a big Spurs fan, U of A fanatic, and they are currently in the World Series of college. So that's fun. Give it up. Here we go. Miss Kim. What's going on, Kim?
What up? Yeah, I'm happy to hear that U of A shout out. I'm excited to go to the College World Series on Friday.
That's right.
Yeah.
As we're doing this episode right now, they're currently in the World Series, a college baseball, okay? And Kim's going to go see them. Kim, are you a U of A alum?
I went to Arizona State, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Talk to me about that. How does that work?
All right. So I grew up in Tucson, born and raised. So I grew up going to I played soccer.
Okay.
So grew up going to their soccer games, grew up going to their basketball games, obviously, football games. Tailgating was so much fun. In high school, I thought, oh, I'm going to go here. You know, it's going to be the greatest thing. Applied to ASU, NAU, U of A, got a full ride. I got the Obama scholarship to ASU.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, I had another option, and that was to go to Pima, which is a community college.
Yeah.
They offered me a soccer scholarship. So initially I was like, oh, cool. Like I can play college soccer. Signed my letter of intent. And then like not even a couple days later, I got this letter in the mail from ASU, and it said, you could be an Obama scholar. We'll pay for your room, your board, tuition, all of it. And so I was like, I'm going to get out of Tucson.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. So Tucson, here we go. I'm going to say two things. Two things that come to mind when I think of Tucson locals, okay? And let me know if this is something that is legit about Tucson, okay? T-Loc. Okay, that's the first term. EGs. Is that pretty spot on?
Yeah, I would say. When you said first thing that comes to mind, I was like, he's going to say T-Loc.
I mean, it's the first, when I first heard about that term, I was like, okay, this is probably just someone shortening it up. And then people were telling me, oh, no, it's legit. That's what they're called, T-Locs.
Between that and Dirty T.
Oh, and the Dirty T. Okay, that's another one.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Why do you think T-Loc?
Tucson local. I mean, it just kind of flows,
That makes sense. You know what I was thinking? T-Loco. So I'm like, what is so loco about Tucson?
No, Loc short for local.
That makes more sense. And then EGs. Are you a big EGs person?
Especially during my birthday month. They do the watermelon EG, and I think it's the best flavor.
Okay, watermelon EG. You heard it from Kim. It's best flavor. Go ahead and try it out. Let us know. I'm curious to know this. EGs, when I first heard about them, so it's shaved ice is like the big thing on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have such a hard time describing it to people because it's kind of like a sorbet.
Okay.
But it's a snow cone, but it's a slushy. So it has like the type of consistency where you can sip it with a straw, but you can eat it with a spoon.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't get the whole craze about it. I still don't. Like, I've had it. It's good, but I don't know if it, because just in Tucson, like that was just such a staple. It's just like it's pushed down everyone's head to be like, hey, like this is it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for others, but as someone who played outdoor sports, I played soccer and I ran track, and there was nothing like looking forward to a cold treat after a workout in 110-degree weather. So I think that kind of adds to the nuance.
Yeah.
But I think I would be doing them a disservice if I didn't bring up the ranch.
Ranch?
It's the ranch that they are world famous for.
Okay. This is funny. So you're just like my wife. My wife is very particular about her ranch, and she will let me know if it's a ranch that's not going to be good to her and she'll just like, no, or it's, oh no, this is it. And I just crave this is the exact one I want. Is there a science to ranch, you think?
Yeah, I do. So like one of my favorite wing spots here in the Valley, it's called Valley Wings. I don't know if you've ever had it.
Yes. Shout out to Valley Wings. I love your guys' wings. You guys are awesome. Yes.
Black
Amazing.
owned business also, if you
Love
ever want
it.
to support one.
Love
They
it.
do by far have the best wings. The sauce, they are very liberal with it. But the ranch, constructive criticism.
Go.
It's just a little watery. I think yeah, there's a science behind the ranch.
Okay. We talking
Yeah.
like Hidden Valley kind of watery? Because Hidden
Low-key.
Valley's kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Valley Wings, you heard it. We still love your wings, though. Phenomenal place. If you guys haven't checked it out, you should. There is a location in Scottsdale and in Phoenix and some really good people behind that. So shout out to them. Kim, I know we kind of just jumped right into it because I just got you real quick with understanding a little bit more about Tucson. But I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. It's been one I know we've been talking about for a while. And just for people out there to know, Kim and I met a few years ago. We were actually working at a company that were sister companies, and it's been so cool, literally so cool to be following you and seeing what you've been doing lately, and something that's really, I think, behind a lot of purpose, a lot of beliefs that you have in. And before we dive into that, Kim, we usually like to take some time in the podcast to talk a little bit about your background upbringing, because I think this is going to be really crucial to who you are as an individual. And for a lot of people who are just starting to know Kim because of her work, this is a great time for you guys to really see who's behind that screen and who Kim really is. So, Kim, take it away. Tell us a little about you.
All right. So, as we established, I was born in Tucson. I didn't have the most conventional upbringing. So I have a little brother. He's 2, sometimes 3 years younger than me, depending on the time of the year. But so it's just me and my brother, and then there was my mom and my dad. And funny enough, we grew up in an apartment complex called Kimberly Woods, and I still question to this day if that's what they named me after. Like, am I named
Okay.
after an apartment complex?
Yeah.
But yeah, my mom and dad, they were never married. My mom was a young mom. She had me at 21. And yeah, one night they got in a really bad fight, and it got to the point where my mom called the cops, and then she escaped to a neighbor's. If there was a domestic dispute, I didn't see it happen, but
Sure.
I heard the altercation, you know. But at 4 years old, you know, I can't really comprehend what's happening. So, yeah, the cops came, and I actually never saw my mom ever again.
After that incident?
Yeah. So, you know, I was raised by a single dad. I think he did the best that he could, but he had some demons, you know.
Sure.
So my dad, he worked pretty odd jobs. I know he was a milkman at one point. I think he worked for Shamrock. And so it's funny because he would deliver milk to schools. And one of my elementary schools was his
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
So
people
you'd
would
see
be like,
him
oh,
come
I
by.
saw your dad delivering milk. And I'm like, yeah. But, you know, my dad had a drug and alcohol addiction. And I remember I kept track of this. Over the span of 2 years, we got evicted 11 times.
Wow.
Yeah. And well, what's insane, and I don't know how my dad managed to accomplish this, we never moved more than we stayed within a 1 mile radius the entire time. So I never had to move schools. You know, same elementary school, same middle school, same high school, managed to stay in the same neighborhood. So we were never like disrupted in that way, but obviously I hadn't had a sense of stability. I was around 11 years old when my dad's brother moved to Tucson from Missouri.
Okay.
And they noticed what was going on. And I'll be honest, I mean, my dad would be gone for days at a time. And I'm 11 years old watching my brother, not knowing where my dad went, when he's coming back.
By yourself? Wow.
Yeah. And there was times where like I would invite a friend over after school just for me to come home, and the lights weren't on because the electric bill wasn't paid. I can't tell you the amount of times I had to shower in pitch black darkness. Yeah, so my uncle stepped in, and he pretty much convinced my dad, like, hey, I think your kids would be better off with us. You know, like we bought a house, like you'll never have to worry about them getting evicted. So CPS got involved and they felt that was the best course of action. And, you know, throughout all of that, I managed to like stay pretty active. My brother played baseball, basketball, football. I played soccer, volleyball. I ran track. But I actually, when I was a sophomore in high school, my dad was still alive, but he had lost visitation rights to me and my brother because he stopped showing up to visits that we had scheduled. So at that point in time, he had court mandated like mediated visits. So we would have to meet him at a CPS office and we would be in a room and there would be someone there like monitoring the visit. And I remember him like being so depressed that it had gotten to that point where he couldn't see us unless someone else was present. And I think that's why he stopped showing up, but he missed my 12th birthday. And so the courts were like, you have no access to your kids. Shortly after that, the last time I had seen my dad, he showed up at one of my brother's Little League baseball games, and he got kicked out because he wasn't, you know, legally supposed to be there. So, yeah, I was just, you know, keeping my head down, living with my aunt and uncle. I don't know what's censored in terms of, like, types of assault on this podcast.
No, you be as real, as vulnerable, as much as you want to share. Okay.
So I resonated with the Me Too movement because when I was a sophomore in high school, my aunt and uncle, they were really insanely strict. I'm talking hyper-Christian. They wouldn't let me sleep with my door closed. And it's interesting because they had a 21, 22-year-old son still living at their house. And one night I woke up and my cousin was in my room attempting to kiss me in my sleep. And, you know, like, you ever be sleeping and then you just get, like, jolted awake and you don't even know what for?
Yeah.
It was like that. Like, I don't know. I was dead asleep and then, like, something told me you need to wake up. So, like, woke up in a panic and I woke up to my cousin, like, hovering over me in my room. So the second I wake up, I think I literally said, like, what the fuck? And so he, like, storms out of my room, but his room is the room next to mine. So I see him peeking out the hallway, staring at me, and he's like trying to figure out like if I'm gonna like react to that situation. So I got up and I closed the door, and like clockwork, my aunt wakes up because her room's across the hall, and she's like, "Why is your door closed?" And I was like, "Can you come and sit down? I need to talk to you." And so I told her, "Hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but Chris was just in my room and I think he was doing something inappropriate." Runs, wakes up my uncle. They go, "Pack up your shit. Our son would never do that. And even if he wouldn't do it to you. You're too ugly." I am 15 years old. I'm a sophomore in high school. And I'm getting kicked out of my aunt and uncle's because I spoke up for myself. And so the next day, they dropped me off at the CPS office, washed their hands with it. And so I started in a group home. So I shared a room with 4 other girls. And none of them went to my high school, so it's not like I had to see them around or anything. But I was in that group home for about a week. And I was really uncomfortable because they were rough. I mean, I would imagine they all had similar upbringings to mine, maybe even worse. But I never had a good night's sleep there because I felt like I had to sleep with one eye open. But after that, I was moved from that group home to a foster home. And that woman had like chickens and goats and would make us do like yard work in her little farm. And I don't think her house was designed to be used in that way. But she put us to some really weird manual labor.
And she classified herself as one of those homes.
Yeah.
Oh, I can go
somehow. I was like,
that,
damn, like, and you know, and that's why I'm such a big proponent of, I'm so pro-choice because I see what the alternative can be.
Yeah.
You know, as someone who's literally lived through, like, just give it up for adoption. I promise, no kid deserves to go through that. But so I had been in that foster home for maybe 2-3 weeks. And then one day, the woman who ran the foster home, she had a daughter who, she might have been a year or two older than me, but she did go to my high school. So that was kind of awkward because I would like see her in the hallways and it's like, oh, see you later,
Well, it's
So
kind of this weird, like, what is she to you kind of
right,
reveal,
because
right?
it's like she's not my sister, she's not my friend.
But then you guys are kind of live in the same place. So it's like, but are we family? Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like family,
Sure.
I never felt at home. I was like, I'm just somewhere with a roof over my head. And so one day, the woman who runs the foster home, she pulls me in the room I was staying in with her daughter, and they just very flatly say, "Your dad died." And I remember, like, I laughed. And it's not that I thought it was funny.
Sure.
It's more that I thought it wasn't believable. So, the first thing I asked was, like, can I see my brother? My brother was, like, such a daddy's boy, They had a really strong bond. But, they allowed me to, like, visit my brother. And then my aunt and uncle were like, we're trying so hard to get you back. And it's like, you're the same people who kicked me out, So eventually, like, they took me back in. And my cousin still lived there, and they just swept it entirely under the rug and just never talked about what had happened and what got me kicked out of the house.
Yeah.
So, I managed to, stay in school. I was captain of every sport that I played. I was the editor of the high school yearbook. I was in the National Honor Society. I was really involved. I just really kind of wanted to stay out of trouble, and I knew that I wasn't in a financial position to have someone pay for my college, so it was find a way to get a scholarship, you know. So, my route was either soccer or academic, so I just, like, packed up my life and moved to Phoenix.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It amazes me all that you've gone through. And I try to picture, and I know for a fact I will never be able to feel what you went through, regardless how much I can imagine or whatnot. And I'm amazed that you're able to push through all that. I can't imagine as a teenager being told you got to get out, going through a group home, never having a sense of belonging to something. And as teenagers, we're already going through a lot of different hormones and feelings, and that alone paired with that kind of situation. How did you do the rest? How were you that active in sports? How did you push through that? Become a captain. A captain is not just of your athletic ability, but your ability as a leader to stand up, speak up, and be there and have the camaraderie for your team and fellow people, right?
Yeah.
It really amazes me how you did all that. I mean, did you have a different mindset when you were doing things outside the house? Was it a mindset of, I'm escaping all this, this is what's important, and I'm going to live in this moment? Can you talk to us about how you did all that still?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, but at the time, I don't think I knew what I was doing. I don't think I was aware that I was using sports as an escape, but I think there's a sense of control, right? So, like, I had this eagerness to be a captain, and I think it's because it was, like, the one facet of my life that I kind of had control over. But yeah, I mean, looking back at it, sports was definitely my safe space. That was like a guaranteed 2-hour block a day where I just didn't have to face everything else happening in the real world.
Gotcha. So here we are now. You're back with your aunt and uncle. Okay. How long did that last when you went back with them?
Yeah, I mean, so that whole ordeal where, I was removed from the home and then reinstated might have been about a month's time. So I was back with them until I graduated high school, and then I couldn't get out fast enough. So when it was time for me to go to ASU, I volunteered to help other people move in. So I got to move in a week earlier than everyone else.
Wow. Okay. So that was kind of your key to, like, okay, I can get out now.
Yeah.
Let me do this. How was it being separated from your brother for a bit?
It was rough. And my brother had dealt with some ups and downs we obviously lived with the same people, so I knew what he was going through. But, and I'm so proud of my brother because he actually won a state title in baseball his junior year. I think it was his junior year. And he ended up getting a scholarship to play baseball, and he played professionally in Canada. And now he coaches at a high school, and just really proud of him. But I remember there was a time, it might have been like my sophomore year, he called me and he's like, I think I'm going to quit baseball.
Oh, wow.
And I just said, hey, like, as someone who walked away from soccer, I would hate to see that for you. I think that, you're going through some emotions, and I really just think you should think this through. And I'm so glad he stuck with it, and I'm sure he is too.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, you get the opportunity to place, I know Canada's up there, but I still think it's over. I guess it's not technically overseas. It's going to a different country.
He needed a passport.
Yeah, it's still cool though. It's great. It's a great experience to have. I have a buddy of mine who got to play some professional baseball out in Germany. And that was an awesome experience for him. So good for him to continue what he did. How much do you miss doing sports? I mean, I'm sure you're probably doing some like recreation sports out there, right? I've done some. I know I've seen you do volleyball, right?
Yeah. So I still play competitive volleyball. I didn't realize how much I miss soccer or how I loved being like really good at something.
Yeah.
Last night I subbed for a team, and I did something really cool with the ball, but it was like muscle memory for me.
Yeah.
And someone was like, damn, did you play soccer? And I was like, yeah, I got a scholarship.
Yeah.
And then someone tossed the ball at me, and then I like deflected it in a really cool way, and it went to someone, and they were like not expecting me to be so accurate. And I was like, damn, I really miss soccer.
Yeah. It's funny because when I knew you, I didn't even know that about the soccer piece of you, which is really cool. You're talking to a big soccer fanatic, by the way. So
you're going to hate this, but I think soccer is one of the most fun sports to play. I think it's so boring to watch.
Really?
I can't handle watching 90 minutes to potentially see a 1-0 game, or even the fact that it can end in a tie is just insulting.
But not even like, okay, let me give you a situation because as you guys may know, and if you don't, heads up, World Cup's coming to the United States. It's going to be awesome, and that's in 2026. You're telling me, okay, hold on. Boring to watch live or on TV? What did you say?
I mean, I've never been to a professional soccer game.
Okay.
I did grow up going to U of A soccer games.
Okay.
That was fun, but that was like, I was in club, I would go there with my whole team, and
yeah.
I think part of it was just the experience of being like with your teammates doing something. And this is no shade. I have so much respect for them. I think like the amount of cardio is just insane.
That's wild.
I think it's just I hate the offsides rule. I feel like a lot of the time you're punishing the defender for being lazy. There's so much I could critique, but I think it's just, I could understand why someone thinks like watching baseball is boring, right?
Right.
I disagree, but
I like watching baseball.
Yeah, I just can't.
Okay, that's totally fine. So I'm one that like this. I'm not gonna lie, it hurts for me a little bit because I love soccer so much. But everyone to each their own. Here's a scenario I got to put in your head because I think this changes stuff too. You said you haven't been to a live soccer game or like a professional one, right? Okay. So I grew up watching soccer, played soccer. Sorry, Dad, I wasn't the soccer superstar. I wish I could be. But one of the coolest things that I really get to see from, I guess you can really say any sport, but soccer, the world sport, right? When else, USA basketball, okay. But when else can you as a country, especially when it comes to international, like U.S. soccer, get behind it, cheer for them, especially and like, I'll give you an example. Mexico against USA. I got to see them play in Glendale, State Farm Stadium. One of the greatest experiences ever. It's just very live. People are in it. They're chanting. They're singing. And so one of my bucket list things to go watch in Europe because that would be awesome to see.
Their fans are next level too.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I think if you got to experience that, right? If you got to experience that, it might change your view on it.
I'm
especially
open
fall in love
to
with
it.
the team.
Yeah, no, I'm open to it, and I get what you mean about like it really brings people together.
100%.
I went to the World Baseball Classic when that was here at Chase Field, and that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, you had like Colombia, Canada, Great Britain, people dressed up like
They
I don't.
support their country, man. They
Yeah,
love that stuff.
it was insane.
Yeah. Okay. So you played soccer, made soccer, watching wise, to be determined later on, hopefully.
I still have to see the Phoenix Rising.
Oh, they're fun.
Yeah.
They're fun to watch.
I went on like the dollar beer night.
It's, you know what? I don't know. I hope they still do that. I did that before. So I went to one with my old company, which we used to go to some of those games, and we'd go on that dollar beer night.
Oh, okay.
A lot of fun. I don't know if they do it anymore. If you guys are amazing. If not, Phoenix Rising, come on. That's how you're going to bring a lot more people out. But I do think this town, or I think the Valley deserves an MLS team. I think it would thrive down here.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
hot, but
we need to replenish the hockey team. So.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I still can't believe that happened. But Arizona sports are, I don't know if I can touch on that and how much time I've left, because I can go on a rant about the Phoenix Suns right now. And I don't want to touch that. But yes, the Valley sports, we got a lot of work to do, and I think an MLS team might help, especially since we lost the hockey team.
Yeah.
But, okay, so Kim, you go to ASU. What did you study there? What was your major?
I changed it like 3 times.
That's okay, yeah.
Yeah, I actually got into the Cronkite School initially.
Okay.
I wanted to be a broadcast journalist.
Cool.
And, reality kind of smacked me with a brick. So at ASU, at least in the dorms that I lived in downtown Phoenix, they put you on the floor of your dorms based off of your major. So I was the 14th floor. It was really cool. I could see Chase Field from my room, and I could see what was called U.S. Airways Center at the time, where the Suns play.
I remember that, yep.
Yeah, I could see that from my room.
That's awesome.
Super sick. You walk up and down that floor and ask any single person, what do they want to be? I want to be on ESPN.
I believe that.
And I was like, this is such a small portion of a very large campus of thousands of universities. Everyone's going to want this job. So, I was like, you know what? It's not very practical. So then I switched it to exercise and wellness. I could not pass anatomy and physiology to save my life. I studied business, and I feel like I'm forgetting a couple majors.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're getting the picture here. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I had stepped away from school for a while because I was like, I really just don't know what I want to do. But I worked some serving jobs. And in that industry, everyone's an alcoholic.
Well, to be fair, serving, been there, it can be tough. Alcohol definitely helps. After a shift, of course.
Yeah. But it gets to a point, like,
no, of course.
Everyone's on cocaine. I've never done it, but the amount of people that, like, I've walked into my own boss doing blow in the back. Yeah. I'm like, this industry is insane.
Okay, so a little too much.
Yeah. So then, I had some really poor habits. I was going out on, like, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, doing it all over again. And then I was like, I need to get my life together. I was withdrawing money from the bank that I didn't even have. Like, I was going into negatives just so I could spend money on going out.
Yeah.
Like, once I turned 21, I was pretty feral. But yeah, I was just like, I'm so tired of being broke and literally living off of ramen and like paying rent late. I was like, I don't want to be this person. I need to get my life together. I need to be a productive member of society. So then I got a job at a call center, I was working in customer service, and then maybe after like a year or so, they moved me up to a team lead. So then I was training people. And then from there, I was just continuously like honing in on my skills, building my resume, gaining more job experience. And then that's where I ended up meeting you. Was one of the recruiters from the company at the time had reached out to me, and he said, hey, like, we have an entry-level role as an assistant. It's a newer position. And I was like, sign me up. And then gained some really valuable friendships through that job too. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's the biggest blessing I feel that I got from that company was just the people. There's some really good people there. And on both sides. Because then I got to meet you, got to meet some other people on that side too. And I'm like, this is cool. And before they, went full corporate, the sole owner there, I love that guy. Very amazing dude. It was one of those people that would literally go up to you, shake your hand, get to know your name. So there was some really cool things that come out of that time. But So there you are. You're now in this position here. Can I ask you, sorry, I don't know if you touched on this. When you stepped away from school, did you ever go back?
No,
Okay.
no, I just, I found my corporate footing. And then at
Yeah.
that point, I was like, I obtained jobs that people go to school for.
100%.
You know, I have friends who got their degrees and they're still working and serving. You know, it
Yeah.
just felt redundant after a certain point. I would love to, get that paper just to say I did it.
Sure.
But in this climate, it's really not necessary unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah. I agree with you. And this is coming from someone who put themselves in debt going to school. I mean, truthfully, right? I tell people all the time, it's sad that, and I think, I will say this, I think we're stepping away from it, which is good. And we're lessening this negative stigma. But for me, I felt going out of high school, that was that, right? You didn't have people at least coming to our high school be like, let's talk about this, the trade business, what you
Right.
can do. And, I had a buddy of mine who was very smart. Shout out to my buddy Nathan, who is a lineman, right? And he figured out very early on about himself. Told me, he's like, school's not really for me. I'm going to finish this, but I want to go something towards I'm passionate about more in that trade. Great.
Yeah.
For the rest of us, it's kind of, hey, get your education. And I'm not saying education is not important. It's absolutely important. And there's some valuable insights that we get from going through college and learning some of those classes. But I'll say it again, and I said this before, a lot of my experience, a lot of valuable experience about myself, what I applied to my career came from the outside experiences of the classroom in college, right? So I'm glad about that. But you don't need to go to college to get this education and thrive in today's world. You can do that without a piece of paper.
Yeah, I would never discourage someone from going to college. I think
Right.
it's incredibly beneficial in a multitude of ways. Most importantly for me, I think from the social aspect. So
Yeah.
luckily, because of being in college for no matter what period of time, I met such an assortment of people. I met demographics I had never been introduced to from my own little echo chamber growing
Right.
up and, my high school. And, Tucson's only so big. And then you go to Phoenix and it's a literal melting pot.
Yeah. It is.
So I think, as someone who was raised with conservative Christian values, it was so refreshing to meet people outside of that.
Yeah.
And
Different paths of life, different beliefs.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, the world does not operate, black and white.
Yeah.
And so it was because of that exposure that I have the values that I do now. So, no, I think college is great. I think it's more beneficial to help you develop as a person. I don't think that it is too critical to your career.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. I don't think employers should judge whether someone is capable of a job because they got a degree.
Right.
There's other tangible ways to measure someone's work ethic.
1,000%.
Mhm.
1,000% agree with you. And it's funny, even the job that we talked about that I had, in Scottsdale years ago, where I got to meet you through the sister company. The director at the time, who was recruiting or hiring me or going through the interview process, right, had even told me, I have a degree in political science. I have a degree in psychology and sociology. It's more about and it's a little sad. It's like, in order to get an entry level job, really, you can't go around it. Here you are, right? But it's almost like the college degree is the new high school degree, right? So, that's just why we talk about it, bring it up, just because it's, go get your education if you want. Absolutely. It's an experience for everyone individually. But I think we both agree on that it's not a necessity. So if you feel a drive to do something else outside of that, go for it. You can make it happen. You just got to work at it. That being said, I know after you left the sister company where you used to work at, you ended up going, I believe, still down was the HR route that you were going for?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I work in HR, and, that's another career where you don't necessarily need a degree.
Yeah.
I think getting certified is important. It helps you stay current with, compliance laws are always changing, state laws are always changing. But, I work in HR. It's a very humbling experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you say humbling, you smirk. What's that piece of HR about? Is that the
man.
customer service kind of deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, people calling you, complaining about getting fired. And it's like, well, you showed up drunk.
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. So it's really hard to keep yourself composed sometimes.
Oh, sure. I mean, I feel that even in my line of business, someone calls complaining. I will say one of my weaknesses here is I don't mind so much that when someone calls frustrated, I get it. But sometimes it's the you stuff. And it's almost like you can't help yourself but wanna like defend yourself, right? Like I'll give an example, right? Had someone call in and say, well, I've sent this to you many times. You were supposed, well, bud, I've never talked to you in the first place. I don't know who you talked to at the company. So see that? People are starting to see right there. I get a little defensive off that. It's natural though.
Yeah,
You know
for
what I
sure.
mean? But it's not the prettiest piece of work, that's
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, no, so in HR, it's funny too because like people kind of come to you and you're like the corporate therapist.
That's
And
right.
it's like sometimes they're venting to me about things I completely agree about and I can't say it.
Oh, right, because you're speaking on behalf of the
Yeah,
company. Yeah.
yeah. You know, I'm supposed to be impartial.
Yeah. So funny because here we are. Here we go, everyone. We're going to dive into this now. Dive into what's been going on in Kim's life and what's been super exciting to see and start really blow up, really. Here you are in an HR role where I think that's the best way to put it. I'm going to start using that more. The corporate therapist. It really is. But you are now speaking on behalf of the company. So you have to be careful what you say. But then here you are. You are what people may call now a political influencer, and you're speaking whatever comes to mind, your truth, what you strongly believe in.
hmm
How do you balance that?
I would rather be reprimanded for speaking my truth than seeing what could happen to people if I don't speak up for them.
Wow, love
You
that.
know,
Let these people know. What is your handle on Instagram for them to find you?
slay the GOP.
I crack every time I hear it. I love it. So, Kim, let's talk about this. Obviously, you started this journey of starting to speak up and post videos. And some of these videos, some will say, hey, you're attacking the Republicans. I don't necessarily see that. I see you speaking your piece and your truth on something that can't really be called in live time, which I do appreciate. We had this conversation yesterday, right, over the phone, just talking about a little bit about what you're doing and how something can be posted and it's not checked in real time.
hmm
And you're not going to go through all the comments on things, right? You're going to see a video, it's starting to circulate,
hmm
and you're thinking, oh, this is a piece of info, which, by the way, is getting very dangerous these days. A lot of misinformation being spread out there, but because it can't be checked in real time,
hmm
right? You can't look at a video and be like, whoa, let me interject in this live video and say something. So what you're doing is really interesting and really cool, I think. You're taking some of these videos, some of these very seen videos, very viral videos, and you're commenting on them to
hmm
one, bring a little truth and bring a little bit of piece of what you believe in and what they're saying. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. How did this start for you? I want to know what was it that in you that sparked that first video that said, I need to speak up on this. I need to say something.
Yeah. I think the first one, because you know, before the political content, I used to be one of those like Facebook warriors. Like people would be talking crap about like vaccines or you know Black Lives Matter, and I was the first person in those comment sections like tearing these people up.
Yeah.
Um, so with TikTok, it was like 1 in the morning,
1 in the
and
morning. Okay.
I'm watching Modern Family as I always
I love
do.
that show. It's a good show.
So wholesome.
Yeah.
I got, you know, both my dogs on my lap. Yeah, it was just like a regular Saturday night. I wasn't doing much. And I'm just, you know, scrolling, doing my doom scroll. And this woman pops up and she goes, did you know that Black women are statistically more likely to be assaulted by their partner? And so I'm like, oh my God, like, I would love to hear, you know, let's open the
Yeah.
table for discussion. And then she proceeds to say, it's because they don't respect men. She said it's because they don't have respect for men.
Ooh.
And that was like a 180 I was not expecting. So I was
Yeah.
like, hold on. Let me put you in check.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you have to talk about like systemic racism and policing and, you know, people just knowing that Black women are easier to target because no one's going to follow up on it.
Mm.
And so she's missing a lot of context by saying Black women are 20% more likely to be assaulted. You know,
Yeah.
like let's add to the nuance and explain why that is, you know, without putting blame on them.
So this is where it started. This is where your brain just started like, hey, like someone's got to say something. Someone's need to speak up. So was that your first video that you did? Or is that what kind of led to your first
I would
video?
say that was one of my first videos that was talking about like culture or politics, you know? And then I think the next one that had really set me off was this blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl that lives in LA, of course. And she had posted, liberals say they would never vote for a felon, but then they're like, here's our statue of George Floyd. And it's like, what is with this false equivalency?
Yeah.
We're not putting George Floyd on a pedestal.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that he didn't deserve to die over a counterfeit $20 bill.
Sure.
And then for you to claim to hate felons and then put one in office is extremely contradictory,
Sure. Yeah.
So, I felt compelled to call that out. And then I was like, oh my God, the amount of people that had like retweeted and commented on her post, I was like, there is an entire demographic of people who think just like her and support that.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I was compelled to find the demographic of people that don't think like that and try to persuade the ones that do to move over to the right side.
Sure. Or to the side that you feel should be felt a little more, be open-minded to that perspective.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. I think as you say, like there's a whole demographic of people that believe what she's saying. You're now starting to see there's also, that other demographic of people that look at you and hear you and go, thank God someone's talking. Thank God someone's speaking up. You're starting to become that voice.
Yeah, no, I get a pretty healthy amount of DMs saying, thank you so much for speaking up on such topics.
Yeah.
You say the things that I can't articulate. And I even get messages from people who say like, hey, you kind of pulled me out of that void because like, I used to think that way, but then the way that you framed it made me question my beliefs. And so if the only impact I make is that I made a couple people change their mind, then I'll take it,
I think that's a big win.
Yeah.
That's a huge win because you have opened someone's mind, right? Their perspective. That's the number one struggle here. I think we have an issue right now in America. I truly believe this, that there are people you'd consider far left and far right. People who would never want to think the other way, which, hey, stay strong in beliefs, that's fine. But I think it's healthier for people to be open-minded on things. Kim, I would say if we had a Republican influencer come in here and have a conversation with us here and talk to you about a couple of his or her points of view, I would imagine you'd be open-minded to hear it out, but then obviously speak your piece on why you think a certain way, right? It's not like you're just like, you're talking, no thank you.
Yeah, no, there's definitely issues that I think are absolutely just not negotiable.
Sure.
But there's other, forms of policy that I'm sure I could find common ground with.
Yeah. I think this is huge for you to say because being one who's been following up on you and seeing how well you've been doing and then seeing some of the comments, what people are saying, I think there's a lot of people who just get very upset hearing one thing that doesn't strive with them, right? But not really understanding, like, do you even know this individual? Do you know that they're capable of having a conversation with someone? It's not like you're over here shutting out different ideas, but you're going to speak on yours and you're going to tell them why that is, right? So I think it's just something very important, in my opinion, to that people do know that about you, is that you are open-minded to hear things out, just as you would have a conversation with anyone. You know what I mean? I think
for sure.
There's a lot of people out there, which truthfully irritates me, that might be trying to do something similar to what you're doing, but they want people to paint like everything's a non-negotiable to me. There's nothing I want to talk, like everything's my way, the right way, which I think can be a little harmful.
Yeah, and there's an issue right now with like liberals, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess maybe the same thing could be said for Republicans. I've seen people who claim to be Republican and then maybe they voice, hey, I might be kind of pro-choice.
Yeah.
And the people are like, you're a fake Republican.
Yep.
You're actually a liberal.
Yep.
And so for me, like I started receiving a lot of backlash within the last 24 hours because I posted something about how like I don't think it's rude if a restaurant asks a woman with a screaming kid to leave.
Oh, I did see this.
Yes.
Do you want to let them know a little bit of the context of that?
Yeah, so basically this woman posted a video ranting and she was like, I just got asked to leave a restaurant. Yes, my kids were crying. They're doing what kids do. And my kids inconvenienced an older couple. And then she's like, you are entitled to a child-free life. But you are not entitled to, I think she said, like a world without kids.
Yeah.
And, for me, as someone who is child-free, I absolutely feel like children and mothers deserve to be in public spaces. You know, my issue is if I am going to pay dinner if I'm going to pay money to have a nice dinner somewhere, I don't want to sit next to a table where a baby is crying for so long that the restaurant has to ask them to leave.
Right.
So there has to be mutual respect, right?
Yeah.
And so she said, was that rude? And I, had responded and I said, no, it wasn't rude, and I just think that it's to be expected that if you have a baby, there's the possibility that they might cry or
Sure.
throw a tantrum, and that's fine, that just is a part of life. However, if it gets to the point where it's disrupting the peace of others around you, I feel like you have to have some awareness and be like, okay, you know what? Maybe I should get a to-go box.
Yeah.
And I should just take this home so that it's not everyone else's problem. And I kind of made the comparison, like I have 2 dogs. One of them is super reactive. So if I'm taking him for a walk and he sees another dog in the distance, I have to redirect him so that he doesn't cause a scene. So I couldn't imagine if I took my dog to like a dog-friendly patio and then someone else brought their perfectly well-behaved dog and then my dog was being erratic and barking
Right.
and lunging. I'm not just going to sit there and say, dogs will be dogs. No, I'm
Right.
going to take my dog and I'm going to leave because it shouldn't be everyone else's problem.
Right.
And I didn't think that was like a controversial thing to say. And I got so many DMs from people like, this is such a MAGA talking point. And it's like, I thought that MAGA was the party of conservative values and they're the ones having kids.
Yeah.
So if that was a MAGA talking point, I guess I would technically be defending the mothers with the kids in the space.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not defending mothers, right? Like,
No.
I'm just saying there's a lot of layers to it, but I don't think my opinion was as controversial as people are making it out to be. And I do think a lot of people just got really defensive as parents, and maybe they had been in that situation before. And, it's probably really stressful and embarrassing. And no one is more flustered than the person that's like in the heart of it,
100%. Selective hearing. You know what selective hearing
Absolutely.
is, right?
I'm guilty of it myself.
I do it too. But this is, I think, truthfully, one of the biggest examples of it. I think you nailed it. You're talking about people who might escape a little bit of social media, especially if they got kids, it's busy, they're stressed. So what do they hear? Rude, being in a restaurant with kids, right? Your point on it. And they're just picking out words. So then they get upset. Now they can put their anger and frustration towards something, which a lot of people do online, okay?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's as controversial. I really don't. So I will agree with this. I don't think it's controversial. I think you're just making your point, your perspective on it. And to be honest, there's a lot of parents that do that already.
Yeah,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? Like if they have a child, I've seen plenty of times. To be honest, I can't recall a time where I was around an adult, so maybe I'm lucky, that wasn't aware of that and was kind of like, okay, I got to take the baby out real quick, or I got to take the kid out. Hey, let's go out here. You know what I mean?
I've literally been in situations where I was at places with, friends that have kids, and like the second their kids act up, I've had a friend be like, I'll be right back. And she took her daughter to the bathroom and spanked her.
Right.
And I'm not, recommending that. I'm saying like
Right. You're just giving
she
an example.
handled it in that moment, you know. I would like to think if I had a baby who was crying, I would step outside.
Yeah.
And I had so many people like, well, she was by herself and she had 3 kids. Where were the other kids supposed to go if she stepped away? Well, where would the kids go if one of the kids had to go to the bathroom? She would have to take them to the bathroom.
Right.
So either way, they would be abandoned. You know what I'm saying?
No, 100%. And those are valid points. I just think this is kind of where we're at right now, just in general. Like, this is a perfect example of it, where we can't even like freely say a couple of things, just like in perspective, until it gets attacked. And more so because of how big you've gone. That's the reality too. There are people right now, because of how much you're starting to grow online and your presence, they're going to attack you for any little thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's huge.
And it's the demanding of perfection, or that we be aligned in every single capacity. And it's like, you can try to put yourself in this party or that, but at the end of the day, we're all still individuals.
Yeah.
And I reserve the right to hold opinions that don't always align with, what everyone else's is.
Yeah, I agree with that. For some of the videos you've done it seems it's more so, obviously this was a little different from politics, but from some of the political standpoints on the Republican side, right? Ones that you comment on where they're getting their facts from, whether you feel that it's not accurate or completely falsified. How do you go about doing your research on some of these videos?
So for me, it's funny because I don't typically seek out these videos, right? Like they almost happen organically. They pop up on my feed.
Okay.
So I'll hear someone say something and, I'll switch things up and I'll even use the left for an example. So this video had populated and someone was talking about how a woman in, I want to say it was Missouri, was arrested for having a miscarriage. And I would like, oh my God, like, is that where we're at in society right now, where
Yeah.
people are getting arrested for something that is completely out of their control? So I looked it up. I think I checked like 3 different sources. And it was like, no, she was arrested for the way she chose to discard the remains.
Mm.
But we want so bad to perpetuate this fear in order to get our point across that we're willing to mislead people. And that's something I refuse to do. We can convince people to vote a certain way or to provide perspective, but you lose validity when you do it in a way that is technically a lie.
Yeah, 100%. I think, again, that's what's going on is we are putting pieces of things without the full context out there.
Mm-hmm.
And people who don't know the research, right? Because videos like what you're doing right now are really, truthfully, starting to become the information pieces of the world, which is a little scary sometimes too, because the old media of watching the news, growing up, that's what it was, right? Oh,
Yeah.
news stations, they're never going to lie. That's what it is. And now you got people who are coming out on podcasts, their own YouTube channels, doing short videos like yourself, right? Clips that are putting piece of information out there that wouldn't necessarily be seen. And so now you're kind of like, where, people are so used to already, okay, the first thing I see, it's gotta be the truth.
Yeah.
And it can be crazy, right?
Yeah.
Alien made contact with the United States yesterday. Oh my God, really? Wow, how does that? Not even looking at the research behind it or seeing that there's an AI video or
And
an
it's,
AI image.
that's so beyond me because we all have access to the same internet and I don't understand why we don't all utilize it the same way.
Because of either it's people don't want to do the research, they just want to believe what comes out,
Right.
but which is what you're doing is super cool because you're trying to show people like, look, this is legit, I don't want to say necessarily unbiased, but you did put the time in to find the research on it and provide it to people. And you tell people where you get it from, right?
It's just weird because it takes the same amount of dexterity to be in someone's comment section as it does to Google something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sometimes I like to say the whole common sense thing's not really common sense, right?
no, yeah.
But look what ended up happening with you in your situation. It ends up being something amazing for you.
Yeah.
Now you got your own platform with a lot of purpose behind it and you're speaking up and, you're rallying a lot of people behind you, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The con of it is people don't really get to know you. They assume things about you we talk about, which is wrong. And then they start attacking you on some things.
Yeah.
And I really hope to some that really have challenged their beliefs and their thoughts. I really hope that you landed on this podcast to listen a little bit about Kim's life because I imagine if you're hearing her upbringing and her background, you're going to be shaking your head a little bit on wondering, oh, okay, so my assumption was completely wrong. Absolutely. That's just in the world we do. We do judge books by their cover right now.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah.
Right. So I just hope that this podcast does shine a little light on you too and who you are. I think there's a lot more that people should know about you and respect about, especially since, you weren't given anything.
Quite literally.
Literally never given anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like some of the support that I've got in my life, I'm so thankful for my parents, but you didn't really get that support. But you're killing it. You're killing it right now and you're doing some amazing things. And so really proud of you, dude. I think it's all amazing that you're doing. I think a lot of people have a lot of respect and a lot of pride for what you're putting out there for the other people who don't have that voice.
I appreciate that.
You know?
But yeah, no, it's honestly an honor to be able to speak on behalf of people who for whatever reason can't.
Yeah.
It's really meaningful when I get messages. I had a message from some high school girl and she said, like, hey, I watch your content every day and you inspired me to go to United Nations meetings. And she just asked, for some advice. And I thought that was so cool that there are people that actually look up to me.
I love it, as they should, doing some good stuff. Kim, for anyone who's out there that is listening to this episode, watching this episode and saying, you know what, she's doing it, I want to speak up too, and I want to say some things, I want to start my own maybe channel or just even they're doing their own reels, like what's some advice you'd give to them to start this journey?
what do you have to lose? You know, you tried and maybe it doesn't work out, but you won't know unless you try. And you would be surprised how many people can resonate with quite literally anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So it's like there's always an audience of something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You know, you could talk about sports. You could talk about being adopted. You could talk about being a redhead.
Yeah.
There is always going to be someone. My favorite comment that I see on TikTok is, I've never had an original thought. I have seen people say some really weird shit.
Yeah.
And then the comment sections will be like, I've had this exact thought. And so, yeah, I mean, I just think that there are a lot more people that could relate to you than you realize.
Some great advice there. Kim, I know you've watched shows, so you know this part was coming up, and it's one of my favorite pieces. We always talk about where we see ourselves in 10 years from now. Where does Kim see herself in 10 years?
Oh, man. I hope I have a house and that I have the space to foster more dogs than I currently do.
Yeah.
Other than that, I hope to just be more involved on a, at the local level. I spoke at a town hall meeting a couple weeks ago, and
wow.
And I was like, that was nerve-wracking, by the way. But I hope that, I could be just a really productive member in my community, I don't want to have a vision for myself because I don't like to live by like a guideline.
Interesting.
But yeah, I feel very on the spot. I wasn't prepared for that.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, no,
I think it's a beautiful look already on it. That's a unique answer in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a vision for it just because I'm living in what it is now in the moment. And, but what are your big points? You want to have a house, which I don't think you're too far from if you keep doing the great success you have going with your Instagram and your videos right now. I think that's coming around pretty soon. Obviously fostering some more dogs, which is great. Also, I don't know if the people got to see your shirt. Do you want to show them real quick what it says right there?
It says, Hot Girls Rescue Dogs. And cats, okay? We love cats,
there we go.
too.
We just didn't have the space to put the end cats.
Yeah.
But I think that's great. And it just sounds like the overall theme of it is you finding your peace.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Which I love, which is amazing. That being said, real quick, guys, we're going to go to our sponsor here. That's right, sponsor of the first episode. Shout out to Openers. Kim, I'm going to ask you a few questions here. It's on the app, okay?
Okay.
Have you ever played any of those question card games? Like the ones that break the ice?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
Openers is a digital card game, and it is a unique one as well. You don't necessarily have to be connected to the internet, anything like that. You could literally have this phone on Do Not Disturb. In fact, Openers encourages you to have it on Do Not Disturb to get to really know someone. As the owner of Openers once told me, it's like a dummy phone. It's not that you don't necessarily have to worry about the phone taking you away from things. You just have to utilize it in the right way. So, Openers, OPNRS, and here we go. This is from I thought this would be a good one, their hot take part. They have a hot take section, okay? Here's the first question. How much do influencers actually influence?
I guess that would depend on what they are trying to influence. I do think from a political aspect, I think that they influence a lot. I think they influence people's perspective and their train of thought. And I think that transcends into people's day-to-day living. I don't know if people really influence lifestyle-wise, aside from like, oh, that's a really pretty dress you're wearing. Where'd you get it? So,
Gotcha.
and like, what is your definition of influence?
Ooh, good question. Hear that, Openers? Maybe we need to get a little more specific with some of these. No, still, nonetheless, I think it's a great answer. I think it is very dependent on what you're influencing, right? Politically especially, is huge. Because now you're swaying some minds. Okay, next one. Here's a good one. What's a common saying that makes you roll your eyes?
Boys will be boys.
Okay, that's a good one. Boys will be boys. All right, next one. What's a social pecking order you've noticed? That one's kind of an interesting one.
I don't know how I feel about that one.
I guess I can see the hot take section comes in.
Social pecking order.
You know what? Let's do another one. This is good, though. You guys can see the variety of questions. Here's the last one. Is it ever ethical to break the law? Ooh.
Yeah, I do think so.
Okay, talk to me.
Okay, like I would steal if I had $0 in my bank account and my dogs were hungry, I would steal a can of dog food from the store.
Okay, and I would respect that because being a dog dad myself, there's no way I'm letting my dog starve.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay, good. I was thinking a little too, I guess, cliche almost. Like you ever heard of the whole scenario where it's like, okay, your family's about to go hungry, so you steal a loaf of bread?
Yeah,
it's like, it's one of those things. So answer that question. Great.
It's just a very, that's a cliche example.
It is. I like your example more. It speaks more to the dog side.
Mm. And we're in Arizona. If I see someone jaywalking, I understand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 1,000%. 1,000%.
I don't know if that, is in regards to ethics, but
I mean,
if I saw a homeless person who very obviously hasn't eaten in a while, I'm going to look the other way if I see them steal a bag of chips,
Well, yeah. I mean, what's that going to cost the company, right? So there is a totally appropriate time to break the law if it's ethical. That being said, thank you to our sponsored openers. There's a fun little preview here. It is out in the stores and the App Store and Android. So be on the lookout for that. OPNRS. I will have that in the description. Kim, as we're kind of winding it down right now, are there any plugs that you want to put in, anything that's coming up for you that people should be aware about?
Not at the moment.
Okay, not at the moment, but stay tuned. And then any last shout outs, anything you want to put out there before we end the episode?
No, I just I really appreciate you having me on here and giving me the chance to share my story and a lot of the background that I think people weren't aware of.
Agreed. I'm really happy that you came on. I think this is a great episode. I loved your perspective. I love what you're doing. Keep doing you. Guys, go ahead, follow Slay the GOP. Learn some new things. Open your mind. Come on, it's not going to hurt. When is anything ever bite in this world? I challenge you, if you do not feel that some of the views from a certain side aren't to your taking, just give it a shot. It doesn't hurt to just hear a thing or two. All right? Slay the GOP. I'll put that in the episode descriptions. Guys, what another amazing week here at Let's Talk About This Way. Another great guest. I really appreciate everyone who's been following along, who's been liking, subscribing. Thank you guys so much. This has been a vision that has just more and more come to fruition, how great things can be, and I'm excited about the future of it. So as the outro music's playing, you already know, great guys from Simi Valley, California, the band Hannah. Give them a listen. They're awesome. Thank you guys again for the music, for the outro and the intro, and we will catch you guys later. Have a wonderful week. See ya.